Welcome back to the Henry Hudson Hour. Today's guest is my friend Jared, who's making his second appearance on the show. The last time he joined me, we talked about his background, but a lot has happened since then. From surgery in a new apartment to a surprise car purchase and some new perspectives on healthcare. We'll also talk about the future, technology, and a few stories that made him look at the world a little differently. It's been a while since you've been on this show. What's changed since we last talked?
Well, as you mentioned, I moved to a new apartment. That happened right on the heels of a surgery happening in the middle of my week of the move.
Terrible timing.
It was, but at the same time, it was the better timing possible. Like, not with necessarily with the move, but with everything else with work and school. It really did work out at a good time. Might have worked at a better time at a different time, but not how it worked out. So we moved. We did most of the heavy lifting that first week before my surgery. Surgery went over. I had 4 procedures done, and I'm out of that first 2-week post-op. The first 14 days, I'm out of that. But recovery, the doctors still say that it can take up to 6 months for full recovery.
Oh gosh, so how are you feeling now?
I'm feeling well, mostly. I guess the biggest thing you can say is weakened, both by the surgery and by the aftermath. You know, recovery was tough at the beginning where I couldn't really eat that much, and I could barely sleep, so I wasn't really resting. Although I was in a rest mode, I'm still under restrictions, actually. I'm still not allowed to lift heavy items or do any strenuous activity.
You mentioned they corrected several issues at once. What all did they end up doing?
The biggest one was a tonsillectomy. They just removed the tonsils, and they also had to correct deviated septum and other structures of my nose.
I see. I have a deviated septum too, but I never considered doing surgery for it.
Well, in my case, it was because my sleep has been affected due to these obstructions causing sleep apnea, and that has been affecting other systems of my body. And so I'm glad that we found the root cause now. I decided to address it right away. I'm on my way to med school, and I would like to actually rest when I'm sleeping.
Yeah, for sure. I understand that. So you mentioned the recovery. What's it been like? How long has it been so far?
Let's see. Today is the 12th, so I'm 3 weeks out of that surgery.
Oh, okay. So it's been a good chunk of time. That's good.
Yeah, but it hasn't been that long. Technically, you're considered post-op for 90 days by insurance, 90 days after surgery.
Yeah.
And I still get bleeding episodes.
Yeah, that's nerve-wracking. I hate nosebleeds.
And they're not normal nosebleeds either. You know, they're caused by the healing tissue, by the scabs falling off, and irritation of any kind. The medical assistant told me that even the slightest change in pressure from my nose, either blowing my nose, not a heavy blowing, just breathing, that can cause a scab to fall off and some bleed to happen. So it's very sensitive and it's very random for me. At least it feels random because I don't feel those, tiny scabs. But that's what they told me is happening with my body right now. It's been a lot of changes. A lot of things haven't been able to do. Like regular things. And so my partner has been doing the heavy lifting in that area.
Yeah. Has anything surprised you about recovering from this surgery, or was it kind of like, did it just go just exactly how you expected it to go?
Well, everything has gone exactly as expected, except that when they told me, oh, you can go back to work in 2 weeks, I really thought that I will be better in 2 weeks. It seems like it still is like any other surgery that I see patients out of my office come out of, which, there's a lot to deal with. You can't work as much as you could before. You can't really, you don't have the stamina that you used to have, 2 weeks before. Things like that. It's just other things that they don't talk to you about that much before the surgery that are really being affected.
Besides that, you've had some other big life changes too. You mentioned you and your boyfriend moved recently. How's the new place?
Really nice. The biggest, well, there are more than a few changes, but the biggest obvious change is we moved from, barely 500 square feet apartment to 1,000 square feet. So it's double the space. It has another bedroom with another bathroom, and the ceilings are significantly taller, which really makes a difference because when you're living in a place with low ceilings, you feel like you're in a shoebox.
Yeah, I actually kind of like this apartment because the ceilings are pretty high.
They seem to be, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely higher than my old place. Not as high as my current place, though.
Yeah. Is it nice finally having room for an office?
Definitely. I think that's the biggest improvement that we've had so far is the fact that we now have a place where we can go to work, just work, and then leave it there, close the door, and then we're home. And that's the biggest change. We were also too compressed in the other apartment with, I guess, things that I didn't foresee at that time. But now we're expanding our home needs, I guess. And so we are setting up an area for the bunny in the office area. So that will also become the pet room. We also have more closet space, and we have 2 closets now, that we have 2 bedrooms. So we used to have half a closet because the laundry was inside our old closet.
Yeah, closet space is the most important thing for me when I look for a place to live. That's literally the only reason I moved here, because my closet, I don't know if you've ever been in there, but it's actually bigger than the bathroom.
You did mention that.
It's huge. So I love, and I have 3 closets, and that one is huge. The other 2 are kind of small, but it's really nice having so much closet space. My old apartment was totally updated. Like, everything in it was brand new. It had granite countertops that were gorgeous, and like, it was really nice. It had an in-unit washer dryer, and it was a 2-bedroom, but I hated it so much because it had no closet space at all. So I had to put my clothes on racks in the living room. Like,
why didn't you put them in the 2nd bedroom?
Well, for a while I had a roommate, but I did put them in there eventually after she moved out. But it just was like, I hated that. I was like, I just need a freaking walk-in closet.
We have 2 now in our new place, so that makes us feel good. We even have an extra storage space outside next to the front door, which is nice, although we really can't find use for it now because the things that we have that require that kind of space are in my partner's family's garage.
Right.
So right now, this is going to be a temporary place as well. As I mentioned on the last episode that we are planning to move to Fort Worth next year, so this is just a temporary place, but we are really enjoying it. Has a balcony. The reason why we chose this particular unit was also because it had a walk-in pantry, which is valuable for us, that we try to
that's really nice.
Organize and optimize our lives. Mostly because, we're busy working and studying.
Yeah, for sure. You also ended up getting a new car, and you told me there's kind of a funny story behind that. What happened?
Well, the funny story is that we were talking about needing a second car, and we had some savings, and we were just thinking about what kind of car, all the new cars that you buy, not new, but newer, but still used, are still within a range of the new cars. So it's very hard to find a working old car that you can get for a little bit of money and just keep running it. And we found exactly that. But it was very funny because it was through my partner's family. They reached out to us and they asked. They knew that we were looking for a second car, but we don't necessarily tell them all the details, not because we're hiding anything, but as things progress and we don't have touch with them, daily or even weekly sometimes, then they just knew the general idea. So turned out that his grandmother's sister had a car and they were looking to get rid of it. And they weren't looking to do much, just literally get rid of it. So for that reason, the price of the car was technically zero for free, except that it was located in Amarillo. So we had to travel there right at the week where the gas prices were the highest. So it did cost us a bit to get there and come get it. It's basically kind of an 8-hour drive from Austin, but we didn't depart from Austin. We went to Killeen because that's where his family is. We were exchanging a car for another to travel with a better car, not the old car that we have. Because it has mechanical issues, which is one of the reasons why we're also looking to get a second car so we can get that one fixed.
Right. Yeah. Texas is huge. I didn't realize it was 8 hours. For some reason, I thought it was actually further than that. So I was going to ask you.
It definitely took us a lot longer than 8 hours to get there and come back.
Questions about that. You said, well, first of all, what was the drive like?
Very long, and because I'm not a Texas native, I don't know where I am. I'm just following the map. Very long and boring, mostly.
Yeah. And, you don't go through many places, significant places on your way on that drive.
I mean, I don't think so. The most I would say is that I experienced some sandstorms.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Or the windshield completely covered by bugs so you couldn't even see.
Mm-hmm. You said the wind turbines really caught your attention.
Yes, because there were so many of them. We kept passing them, and as we got closer to them, they looked so huge. And I look across the horizon, and I see it full of these turbines. So I got really curious as to what they were powering. Also, because I did work in the energy industry, so I know that wind turbines are technically the weakest link, basically, of sustainable energy, mostly because it requires constant speed of wind, not just heavy gusts of wind. So right. It's a little known fact, and then there are a lot of places like where I come from, Puerto Rico, the wind is not constant enough to power a wind turbine enough to generate a significant amount.
Yeah, I don't think most people realize where that electricity goes, but a lot of it comes to Austin. Austin Energy uses about 60 or 70% renewable energy at this point now. And we get a lot of energy from wind. Most of it comes from solar, but we also do use nuclear power as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a way to look up on their website. I think you can see exactly where your energy comes from on your portal. But it's kind of hard to find. I found it one time when I was just messing around on there, and I was really surprised. I was really pleasantly surprised to see how much of it was renewable.
The unfortunate fact for me is that, and then something I also didn't know, I moved to an Austin area and zip code, but I am no longer serviced by Austin Energy.
Right, I know. Yeah, you had mentioned that to me.
And so it's very curious to me how much energy from that produced over there in Amarillo that goes to Austin, but not even all of Austin. It covers a very limited range of areas in Austin. And apparently now I fell into some kind of zone where the energy is deregulated and it's just a bunch of power companies that you have to choose from, which is very confusing and ridiculous because it's the same power that flows through the same cables.
And what did you end up learning from your journey to Amarillo, if anything at all?
Well, I mean, I didn't glean anything more than just a journey, but I mean, I definitely learned how big Texas is. I learned about the power and structures and how much all of it is centralized in Austin, or not just power, but general resources.
Yeah, it's funny how a long drive can make you think. And see, one thing that stood out to me from our pre-interview was something you said about seeing healthcare from both sides. You work in a medical office, but now you've also been a patient, or at least a post-operative patient. Did that experience change the way you look at healthcare at all?
Definitely. I work in a medical office, as you said, and I constantly try to think of both sides. I try to think of the patient experience, but I think it's also compartmentalized. I think I was still having a limited view of the patient because I was mostly thinking of what specific patient experience we're trying to fix at the time. For example, we moved into a new check-in process with a new system in our office, and that changed a lot of things of how the patient experiences our office. And I think of those things constantly, like if I were a manager, like if what I thought really mattered. But now that I went through the actual patient post-op experience, because I hadn't had a real surgery before. The only major surgery I had before was my wisdom teeth, having them removed, and that is not really considered a
major surgery. Right. Mm-hmm. And me too. So was there anything the hospital staff did that you'll remember?
I mean, the nurse that took care of me before getting me into the OR was particularly nice, and she was very dignified. Dignifying, I'm sorry. She seemed to be of an Oriental nationality. I really can't say. I mean, for all we know, she might have been born and raised here, but she had an accent.
I bet she was Filipino.
I really don't know. I didn't ask at that time. I felt it would have been rude to ask. She seemed very professional and, like, you know, the kind of people that looked like they're worried about doing their job right.
And did anything frustrate you about the whole experience?
There's a lot of waiting to be done.
A lot of waiting.
A lot of waiting. Hospitals are very confusing. Like, where's the parking? Where do I stop here? And sure, they give you instructions like almost a week before or the same week of the surgery, but it still feels like it's too confusing or they're missing signs somewhere. It can be a little bit of a lottery sometimes going to a hospital and just finding the right door or the right desk or person to help you. But outside of that, I was just mostly scared.
I can relate to that. My doctor, I saw a specialist, was it this week? Well, I guess last week now. And they told me that I probably need surgery, and I'm like terrified. I so don't want to do it. Has it changed the kind of doctor you hope to become?
I can't say that it has changed, but I'm leaning to one of the specialties that is least related to surgery. However,
okay.
Radiologists do have a scope of surgery of interventional surgeries, which are typically smaller surgeries that can be done in office, possibly if you have an office-based lab. But I wouldn't say that it has changed anything. I'm still scared of that aspect of being a doctor, of doing surgeries, which is probably why I'm leaning towards a more interdisciplinary field of medicine that is radiology. I'm also interested in combining it with nuclear medicine, which none of those really are related to surgery unless you do interventional radiology. So we'll see what happens when I get there. I don't know how I'll feel, but I will definitely find out at med school when I will have the chance to, be in the surgery.
That also got you thinking about something bigger. You mentioned that people sometimes get trapped by systems that are supposed to help them. What did you mean by that?
Yes, definitely the patient experience of the front office is wildly different from the clinical office staff. I know the distinction because I worked in a medical office, and the clinical staff and the front office staff are basically two different worlds. There's the doctor, there's the clinical staff, and those are the people that take care of you. But sometimes getting to them, it feels like an obstacle. Going through front office staff a lot of times feels like an obstacle. Feels like you're talking to a robot. They're just, repeating some protocol, repeating some kind of script that they may have for, this situation or the other one. But I don't know what they're lacking. I know that they're doing it wrong. And it happened to me as a patient. There are tiny little roadblocks to healthcare for an individual, especially an individual that doesn't have someone else vouching for them, like a family member or a partner, or even having that person vouching for them if they're not actively with them through every single step, which for most steps are not necessary, just for an office visit. But if that doesn't happen, then for some reason they miss the fact that you may not have someone else, or even if the clinical staff knows that, the front office doesn't know that, and they don't take the steps necessary to ensure that your care gets completed, the completing the circle or making sure that everything is done.
Mm-hmm. And you're still working toward medical school, as you mentioned, so I guess that goal hasn't changed at all. What's your biggest uncertainty right now?
If you're talking about my biggest uncertainty in terms of my career, it's just my very next step. I'm still unsure of which master's path to take, even though there's one specifically destined for medicine students. I'm still pulled in by the research biomedical masters, because I know that there are things that if I do that master's I will learn that will help me in my career, but it does not help me immediately to get to medicine school, and that remains the bigger goal. So I'm just torn between them two, and I don't know what to do.
Oh, I see. I can relate to that. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
I should be in med school 5 years from now.
Oh, wow. I guess it takes a long time. Yeah.
It does. The masters can take, depending on which one I pick, anywhere from 1 to 2 years, and then the medicine school takes 4 years to complete. The last two are mostly rotations. I can squeeze research here and there. But after that, once you graduate, you still have nothing until you are not licensed. You are not a doctor. You just graduated medical school, which helps you get in some, open some doors, but not all of them. So after that comes residency, and depending on which program you get picked for, you don't pick, they pick you. Depending which program they pick, then that's the specialty that you will be doing, depending on which residency you get accepted to. In which case, in my case, I am going for a residency in radiology, which I may or may not get accepted. I have to apply to, I think I have about 4 to 6 options of residency programs I can choose, or schools. And technically the system allows me to submit up to 12 applications, but there are different programs within a school for radiology. Radiology, as I mentioned, has diagnostic radiology, interventional radiology, and if I combine it with nuclear medicine, which it stands on its own, they do also have a radiology and nuclear medicine combined residency. So it depends on...
It just depends where you get accepted.
Yes, but applying for it, for example, if I choose up to 6 schools, let's say 5 for radiology programs, they may have an integrated pathway for interventional radiology with diagnostic, or they may have just a diagnostic on its own, which means that I have to submit 2 applications per school, which that already caps me at 10 applications. If I want to do a secondary program, possibly apply for a combined nuclear medicine and radiology program, then I can choose those last 2 for any other variants. But I was thinking of just leaving nuclear medicine for a fellowship after residency and prioritizing the integrated interventional with diagnostic. But that residency can take 6 years.
Wow.
On top of the 4 years of med school and
That's
everything.
a long time. I just recently completed taking media law, and everyone was asking me if I was going to become a lawyer, and I just don't think I want to sit in school for that long. To be honest with you, I do kind of want to get a master's, and I don't know what I'm going to get a master's in, but I haven't really thought about it. But I don't want to do law school. I'm just not interested in how long it takes. And
I consider law school for actually a few times. I considered law school while I was still doing my undergrad degree. And the timing of the school, there are some schools that offer a 3-year program. If you take it, with daily classes. If you do nightly, you do 4 years. Nightly doesn't sound that bad. And, you stretch it out. The only reason why I decided not to pursue that line was because I felt like lawyers are always in service of someone else. Like, you on your own don't stand on your own. You depend on clients. And while, that sounds like any other store model or anything like that, it's different for a lawyer because the law is what it is. You have your own style and practice of how to do things or what cases to get involved in, and how, the strategy, the legal strategy, which is what makes you valuable. But I felt like that if I go that path, that I would have no power of my own.
Yeah, it was really a hard class, and I was good at it, but it's just, I'm would rather stick to being a journalist. It's just more interesting to me, actually have fun doing it. And doing the law is like, blah. It's
I actually learned that also there are a lot of people that go to law school and they complete a degree, but they don't become lawyers.
Right, I know, yeah.
And it's not because they can't or won't. I mean, yeah, it is because they won't. It's a choice that they're making because they believe that that degree will help them a lot in their career. As a journalist, that's true. That would help you a lot. It just depends on what path you want to take.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I loved the Apple story you told me. Walk me through what happened.
Yes. I have been going around for months planning on buying, upgrading a few of my devices. And by upgrading, I mean I didn't have them or I had a very old, outdated model. And so I've been planning and looking at the prices and waiting for the Apple back to school education discounts that they have. It's kind of an event they do midsummer to until August or September. And I've been watching those and, making my calculations. I have enough of my savings because I don't get things like that through credit. And so I had enough to buy them, and I was tallying my money and looking at the prices and thinking of when I could get them, because one of the things is that it's a laptop and I needed a laptop. While I have one already, it's very, very big, and I bought it before my back injury, and it's too heavy to bring it with all the stuff that I need to bring it with. And essentially, I needed a more optimized system, and I went with Apple, with the Mac Air, with a new iPad. And I've been looking at their prices and found out overnight that Apple hiked their prices, and the prices that I was looking at, they were no longer available anywhere, except that when they did it, because they did it not when they were launching a new product, they did it across the board. So everything except one or two product lines. I don't remember which one, but I think it was phones. And I don't know the other one. So, essentially, they were hiking the prices with the reason that there's a global outage of memory. And we know...
Oh, right. My coworker told me about that because of AI, basically.
Yes.
He said RAM is really expensive right now.
Because when the industry started shifting towards AI, there was another event that happened with the memory industry a few years back, is that if you remember a few years back, buying any kind of memory was very cheap. And it was because the manufacturers had gone to a point where they could sell them cheap. But then there was some kind of issue with their prices and their stock fluctuation and the raw materials. And suddenly they were in some kind of outage themselves. So they decided to raise the money, to raise the prices on those items. But more than that, it was because when the industry shifted to doing AI or to scaling up their businesses through AI, then the memory industry shifted. The way that those memories need to be for the individual consumer versus the AI are different. The AI uses the memory in a different way that cannot be used by an individual consumer. So a lot of these factories decided to switch their manufacturing to these particular AI memory banks. And so now they can't just simply pull a switch and say, hey, let's switch back to doing regular RAM for everyone. They can't do that. So there's an outage and they just raise the prices on it.
And so you basically beat the price increase somehow. How did you go about doing that?
Well, I'm talking about memory in the very early part of the chain when it's still being manufactured.
Right.
back to Apple.
Yeah, back
they're
to
claiming
Apple.
that this is the reason why they're raising their prices, but I don't really see any other company doing exactly what Apple did with their prices. They just raised them out of the blue from one day to the next. They took down their website, they put it back in the morning with the new prices, and because they did it this way, big stores that had a lot of inventory of Apple did not have time to fix those prices in their inventory. So I got it at the old price with a minor discount. Like if the Apple Education Home event would have gone as planned for me with the old prices, I would have gotten a better price with Apple. But because Apple did the hiking of their prices, then suddenly Amazon price was so much more attractive.
Right.
I saved basically over $300 on each purchase.
Wow. Excuse me, y'all. Do you think companies change prices faster now because everything is digital?
While they can technically do it that way, it's a little harder to do that way in reality. Because a lot of their inventory, while it's being digitized, requires the staff to manually scan it or identify it. And so it's harder for them to change prices on inventory like that because of how reality works. Even if you could do it by pushing a button, it's a little harder to actually do it in practice.
Right. Have you discovered anything fun recently?
Fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been post-op and I haven't been able to go anywhere or do much. But
you told me about the Avatar series.
Oh, that's true. Well, because I've been bedridden mostly for 2 weeks, I had nothing to do but watch TV and read books. But I hadn't had a chance of purchasing books that I like in a while before this move, and I suddenly could. So I was watching series and TV, the Avatar animated series from Nickelodeon, and they made a subsequent season, or I'm sorry, not season, a sequel series. And I discovered that they're on their way to making a third one. But I also discovered that there are a lot of elements of the story that were published through books after the series aired. Not like, traditionally the books come first and then the TV series or the movie. This time they did it kind of at the same time or after. So they aired the series and then the books came out, kind of filling blanks or with different character stories like Disney's doing with their spin-off series of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think that series has lasted so long?
That's a very interesting story because at the beginning they didn't think it would. Nickelodeon then started licensing the series to Netflix, and that's when they boomed because of the subscribers that Netflix has surpassed what they could have on their own.
Right.
And so when that happened, they realized how popular it would be. They waited until the license expired and they created Avatar Studios. They created its own studio to host and produce these subsequent sequels or series. And that they did that while they were preparing to launch Paramount Plus. So while Netflix was airing Nickelodeon's series, when the license was expiring, that's when they launched their own Paramount Plus so that they could take back the series for their own, only exclusively in their own subscriber platform.
Mm-hmm. Are you someone who likes revisiting stories you grew up with?
I do like sometimes going back to them, but I guess it depends on which series and for what purpose. But mostly when I rewatch anything like that or revisiting a story, it's because I want to evoke those feelings I felt the first time when I read them, which we all know it doesn't work that way, but we get close. We can get close. Only if I pay specially deep attention, like to every little detail. Sometimes I realize that I missed something that I didn't see the first time, or I noticed some character in the background or some part of the story that I didn't catch the first time. And that's why I like sometimes revisiting these stories, because it reminds me of things that I may have forgotten, or maybe things that are new to me.
Yeah, I my favorite book series are the Arkady Renko books. And I don't know if anyone out there has ever seen or heard of Gorky Park, but Gorky Park was the first book and the movie was based on it. These right here, and I just found out yesterday. I was looking them up while I was at work, and I found out the very last book in the series is coming out this year, and it's been going since like the early 80s.
That's exciting.
I know. I haven't actually read all of them because there's like 12 and I've only read like 6 of them. Mm-hmm. So I need to catch up, but I'm kind of depressed that he's ending the series after all these years. They're murder mystery novels, so they're all set in Russia, and they're written by Martin Cruz Smith. That's the author. But if you haven't seen the movie Gorky Park, I highly recommend it. I do believe it won some Academy Awards. It came out in the late 80s. It's a really, really good movie. Gorky Park is kind of like the Zilker Park of Moscow. It's like the big park that's like downtown. And they're great books. They're very great books. But I'm looking forward to probably reading one while I'm on break from school. I kind of jumped around a little bit. I didn't really read them in order when I started, but I have, I think, 6 or 7 of them. So I might have to go to the bookstore and see if I can get some of the newer ones. I don't know how I'm going to catch up by the time the newest one comes out. I don't think I'll be able to, but I'll finish the series eventually, I'm sure, one day, and I'm very depressed that they're ending it, but maybe they'll make more movies out of it too. None of the subsequent books were ever made into films, but interestingly enough, I don't know why that is, actually.
Have you ever thought of writing your own, like, fan fiction or just your own story?
I've always wanted to write a murder mystery novel, but I want to write one that's set at the beach. So I kind of have been thinking about that for a long time, but I might do that someday, but obviously with school right now, I'm way too busy to take that on.
I definitely feel that. That's basically the only reason why I haven't done it by now. It's because I'm always in school or working. I remember going back to the Avatar series when I first watched it as a kid. I wasn't that young a kid, but still. I actually wrote my own fan fiction. I said, oh, wait, I'm going to write the next Avatar into the story. And before that other sequel came out of Avatar Korra, I had already written a story for a subsequent Avatar. And, I try to combine the elements of what I knew from the originals and just made up my new little world and my new little story. And I was so excited with it. And then I saw that they made the new sequel, Korra. At that time, it was new. I got excited for it because I had already written something for it. I guess the kid in me was a little disappointed that particular story that I wrote was not the one that they showed or that they produced. But I still want to do that, and I have continued writing little fiction stories like that. I have one of my goals is to eventually publish a comic book with stories or a graphic novel with illustrated stories. I just want to be the writer because I'm not a designer, but I've always been interested in doing that, and I just haven't found the right partner for this venture, I guess.
Yeah, I would like to write. I'm much better at writing nonfiction than fiction, but I would like to write some books before I die. Mostly nonfiction books, but maybe one or two fiction books. You've always struck me as someone who's thinking a few steps ahead. If somebody around our age is listening to this and they're feeling uncertain about where life is headed, what would you tell them?
Throughout my life, I've had people saying, do this or do that, giving me their own version of advice. And it always struck me as generic. It's very hard to give advice to someone when you don't know the full story or what they have versus what they want. But I guess the first step would be to do just that, to compartmentalize a little and separate areas or feelings of yourself and identify what you want versus what you have. But a big part of this is centered in who you believe that you are, which sometimes is a little different from who you really are. It's hard to see yourself, so I would just say to take some time to reflect and time to reflect, sort, and decide. And you have to do that in a place where you feel like you're serene and far away from everyone else.
All right. Well, let's move on to the news. The first story I pulled was really exciting to me as a Texan. There's a Vogue photo shoot that looks how to capture how Texas is rewriting the American narrative. From rodeos to church choirs to marching bands, the magazine's feature highlights the Lone Star State's vast array of cultures and experiences. And they took some gorgeous photos here. And I just thought that this was really cool that Vogue decided to do a photo shoot in my home state. I haven't bought the issue of Vogue that this is featured in yet. I guess it came out last week. But I thought it was really interesting. And Texas is a really interesting state because there is so much multiculturalism that exists here. And that's one of the things that they wanted to feature in their photo shoot. So they took photos out in West Texas in the desert. They took some photos here in Austin of a horseback riding team called, you'll probably be able to pronounce this as a Spanish word, Escaramuza?
I'm not sure. I'm not seeing it.
It's in the caption under the photo of the horses. But it's
I don't even know that word.
Yeah, I don't either. And it's really interesting. I think that it's exciting, and I can't wait to buy the magazine if I can still find it and look at the photos. They said that they felt that there's such a stereotype of Texas that exists, and some of the team members who took their trip with them here to do this photo shoot said they would never think that they wanted to necessarily be in Texas or visit Texas, but were promised that they would have a different opinion when they left the shoot, and they did. And I think that's very true about anyone who's never been to Texas before. I think the stereotypes of it are so wrong, and when you actually visit here, you find out that it's so different than what the preconceived notions of this state are. In reality, it's a huge state, and there's all sorts of different people here. There's so many different creatives and different people in it that are creating their own stories, and it's very fascinating place, and the history here is really amazing too. But I just wanted to mention that. So I don't know which issue. I guess Vogue comes out once a month, so it must be in the July issue, I'm assuming. So I would definitely go out and get Vogue if you can and take a look at that, because the pictures are really gorgeous. So I just wanted to mention that. This next story is terrifying to me. Cat fleas have been linked to a fatal human disease in Texas. It's really frightening. I found a flea a few days ago, but the cats are okay. They don't have any on them right now. I've been checking them every day. A resurging flea-borne disease is on the rise in parts of Texas, and researchers are warning that domestic pets could be bringing it into homes. Luckily, my cats are actually indoor cats, so they rarely get fleas. Like, they've had them a couple times. I don't know how. I guess I just bring them into the house. But new research from the state has drawn a direct line between fleas living on domestic cats and the bacterium behind murine typhus, an illness once thought of as eradicated that has in recent years resurfaced, hospitalizing well over 100 people in Galveston alone. Researchers from the Texas A&M College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences say their findings help explain why a disease once nearly wiped out in the U.S. is now creeping back into households through the family pet. The flea-borne typhus is caused by the bacteria Rickettsia typhi and is spread to humans through fleas that have been infected. Symptoms usually appear 6 to 14 days after exposure and include fever, headache, chills, rash, backache, joint pain, and nausea. Most cases are not mild, but if untreated, the bacterial illness can escalate into hospitalization or death. This is so scary, and I looked at a map of the state, and Travis County was one of the worst counties for incidents of this illness, which is the county that Austin is in, which is where we live. So I'm really nervous about this, and I'm definitely checking my cats for fleas like every single day now, because I'm really on alert. I do not want to catch this disease at all.
I remember when we had cats in the house, we always had them with some kind of anti-flea. Because even though they were indoor cats, they always scurried outside somehow.
Yeah, my Pasha gets outside every once in a while, but he hasn't been outside in months. And so I don't know. I'm going to have to get them on medicine, because obviously this is really serious. It says
you can probably still catch one of those stray flies. Stray fleas from places where cats are. So if you go by a place where there's cats have been, even though they're not there immediately, you can go by. They can jump into your bag and come straight home.
I know, that's why it's so nerve-wracking. It says that it was once a nationwide problem, but aggressive vector control campaigns in the 1940s decimated rat flea populations and all but erased the disease from the U.S. In Galveston, it had appeared to disappear for decades, and they're saying out of the 149 people who are hospitalized in Galveston for the disease, 33% needed intensive care. So that's a pretty high number.
And I'm already... I have been thinking of getting a cat.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it should stop you from getting a cat. You can always give them flea medicine. But for me personally, it's hard because they used to make pills that you could give your cats instead of ointment. And because the ointment doesn't really work for me, they don't like doing it, and they lick it off of each other too, and so it just doesn't really work as well as the pills. But they quit making the pills several years ago, and I had stocked up on them before they stopped making them. I got lots and lots of boxes of them, but they're all gone. They're long gone now, and they don't make them anymore at all. So it's just stressful, and I hope they don't get fleas. That's all I can have to say about that. Oh my gosh. So I wanted to move on. I have always stories about data centers. Data centers have been in the news every single day. U.S. power companies are scrambling to secure equipment as surging data center demand strains supplies. This is from Reuters. Skyrocketing demand from artificial intelligence data centers is exacerbating shortages of critical grid equipment like transformers across the U.S., driving up costs, stretching out wait times, and spurring utilities and developers to lock in orders far in advance. This is really just another example of why I think they need to plan these data centers out better, and they need to figure out how much energy is it going to use, how much water is it going to use, and when we build these, where we build them, is the infrastructure there to support that? And they're not really doing that. They're just kind of doing it willy-nilly and putting them all over the place.
I think there's we're in an adjustment period still where these AI surges and these data center surges are kind of jumping in when, like you say, the infrastructure's not ready for it. The economy is still not ready for it, but they're going for it. And like you say, I think they're going the wrong way because they're trying to build these data centers straight in the middle of where population is, because they want to be there. They want to be the ones that take, that the closer you are to the node, the better your connection is, latency and all that. So I think they're just trying to get ahead of that, but they're trying to get too ahead of it. I also looked into, data centers for like possible future business, possible future business. But one of the things that some people do is that they host these data centers in remote places, but not just remote places where you have access to cooling, like cold places like Iceland or Antarctica, or anywhere that's very, very cold and close to water. You can set up a highly efficient data center. But by trying to smack it right in the middle where the population is, that's where the problems comes in.
Right, and it says that utilities and developers have responded by purchasing equipment well in advance, refurbishing older transformers and asking customers to prepay for equipment that has long lead times, among other measures to tackle the challenges. It says one electric utility in California used to buy equipment for projects 1 year out, and now they're on a 3-year timeline to lock down all the supplies that they need. That's crazy. I'm glad at least that these electric companies are responding to the increase in demand, but it is really just another example of why I think we need to figure this out, and I think that our legislators need to take action to regulate this. Let's see here. What do I have here next? And I think oh, well, this is related to what we were talking about earlier when we were mentioning Apple's price changes. So it says Apple instituted sweeping global price hikes across its Mac and iPad lineups on June 25th, 2026 to offset skyrocketing component costs caused by an unprecedented unprecedented worldwide memory chips shortage. Driven primarily by the massive expansion of artificial intelligence data centers, memory and storage prices have quadrupled since last year. The spike led to Apple to issue a rare statement admitting they have never seen a component price increase this much this quickly. That's crazy. So, wow, MacBook Neo. I've never even heard of that one.
That's a new model they came up with to offer a budget alternative to students who just want to do instead of basically them getting a Chromebook, they want them to be, this is like the equivalent of that. Not that it's like a Chromebook, it's much more powerful, but it only carries the processor of the iPhone, not a computer processor, or at least not their computer processor line.
Well, that kind of sucks.
That's why they make it, that's the cheap alternative. You want something more cheap, you can get that. It uses the same power as the iPhone processor.
Yeah, I love my MacBook Pro. I can't imagine working on anything else. Let's see here. So we discussed that. That's crazy. I'm glad you told me they raised their prices. Not that I'm in the market to buy anything from Apple anytime soon, but it's unfortunate. I mean, I can't believe the MacBook Air is $1,500. That's crazy.
And I got it for $950.
That's amazing. Wow. I remember when they were way cheaper than that. So this next article is an article you selected from YouTube to stud horses. Puerto Rico senators shore up their finances with side income. In addition to their salary, senators may earn up to 35% of their base compensation and outside income. This is interesting. So
let me start by saying that there's something that I think is missing here in this article to provide context. But in Puerto Rico, most of the people have less than $20,000 a year of income.
Right. It says senators' base salary is $73,775 a year.
Which is already quite high compared to what most people in Puerto Rico make.
It says 7 of the 28 senators in the current legislative assembly said in sworn statements that they received income in addition to their salaries. Interesting.
So something else that the article does mention, though a little later, is a well-known fact in Puerto Rico, I guess not a significant fact here in the United States, but in Puerto Rico, when you get, you have a regular job making $7-10 an hour at most, that's your job, and you get no benefits. You have to look for your own benefits, and you have to look for your own things in addition to all of that. And most people who work and make a certain amount of money, they fall in this weird bracket where they don't qualify for any kind of government aid, but then they're charged with all of these things that they obviously cannot afford. So, putting it in perspective, senators and legislators in Puerto Rico, on top of their salaries, get a paid diet. And they used to have drivers, they used to have haircut allowance, they used to have all these extra benefits that no one ever gets on any job unless you're a high-end lawyer working for a high-end firm.
Wow, yeah, and it lists all these different senators, and it says their additional income they received and where they received it from.
One of them has received an additional $54,000. That already puts them at over $100K.
Yeah, and what were they doing to receive that? I don't see that one.
Let's see. I see here one that received $23,000 in rental income from real estate properties. He also earned 26,000 as an academic affairs consultant for the Polytechnic University of Puerto Rico and 4,050 as a lecturer in the Ana Jimenez University. So they're just getting these side gigs, which I'm not saying they're bad, but in reflection of the reality of Puerto Rico, these people are feasting. And legally, because the law allows them to do that, because they are the ones who write up and make up the laws.
Right, exactly. That makes sense. So, well, I mean, I guess it's better than insider trading. I don't know that it's any worse than that.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of these gigs that they get is because they have inside information. You just don't call it insider trading. But the reason why these people have these, sometimes the reason why they have that real estate property is because they had inside government information or access to block or access to do something that is not reflected on any record, but they're doing it because they have the hand in the pot.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. And it's just frustrating, I guess, when the people there earn so little and then their representatives are making so much money. In comparison, it creates a dichotomy that's kind of unfair. But I can see that for sure.
It's an unfortunate reality in Puerto Rico. It historically, everyone looks like having a government job like that was the sweet spot, the sweet job that gets all the benefits and all the money is yours. And it's basically what you would aspire. Like, you wouldn't even say I want to be a doctor to make money. You would say I want to be a politician to make money if you wanted to make money like that. This is just one example of all the things that happen. And in a lot of sense, it falls within what we call corruption. But it's more than that. It's legal advantage. It's an unfair legal advantage of how they're allowed to make that extra money when a lot of Puerto Ricans who could make that money are constricted by other things, because they're not in that privileged position. How much more time do you have to have extra on your hands as a senator and legislator that you have time to do all of these side gigs that a lot of Puerto Ricans would love to have the time to do that, but they can't because they're already working 2 jobs to make 15% of what you make.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely an issue, but I'm glad that journalists are exposing it and that the people know. Amid a U.S. oil blockade, ordinary Cubans survive hunger, blackouts, and epidemics. A severe energy crisis in Cuba has worsened sharply since the start of 2026 as a result of the measures taken by the United States against the island's communist government. Many Cubans are facing extreme hardships due to a lack of basic necessities and are hoping for change. This is an interesting article. I was unaware of this happening.
I brought this up because it's a very big thing. It's important for people to know. I mean, this has been ongoing since how long? It's been years. It's been 6 decades. The article mentions of this economic embargo that the United States has on them. That it is not just them, but how I bring it because Cubans are always close to Puerto Rican hearts. I don't know if I said this before, but there is a poem by Lolita Rodriguez de Tio that says that that Puerto Ricans and Cubans are like 2 wings of a bird. We are, in a lot of the sense, related. And so we know Cuba's history, and we've never been able to do anything about it. And we have been under the foot of the United States under the foot of Uncle Sam, while on the other leg, Uncle Sam is kicking out our brother. You know, it feels. It's not a way I can actually. It's not a feeling I can describe. But the article highlights how Cuba is actually facing the biggest hardship ever. Is that they don't have oil or fuel to power anything anymore. They're going at they're going through 3-day power outs, blackouts, and to having a couple of hours, like to having 3 hours of power a week sometimes, some areas. Like they're going through severe humanitarian needs, and this is what the United States is causing unplanned, on cue. This was their plan, and they continue to enforce it.
Right. Well, the Trump administration is definitely not going to do anything about this. I can guarantee you that.
Nope. The oil blockade was enforced after January 29th executive order by Trump, just weeks after the U.S. military operations in Caracas removed Venezuela's head of state. Basically a key ally to Havana, to Cuba. And this has caused unprecedented fuel shortage. But it's also, me as a Puerto Rican, I can see all these moves that a lot of people are not paying attention to, because around the same time, another article came from the same newspaper, how there was an air base in Puerto Rico that had been abandoned for over 60 years, and it suddenly started operations. No one knew anything about it until the neighboring families just started hearing those airplanes coming off and going off at all kinds of hours, and it just literally triggered their PTSD, because they're most of them are veterans from the Vietnam War.
That's interesting.
So they were using Puerto Rico as a platform for their attacks in Venezuela. And the excuse from Trump was that they're being vigilant about the seas and the coasts or whatever.
Yeah, I think this is a sad situation for people in Cuba for sure. And I don't know what they're going to do to handle it, but I hope things will eventually get better for them. Unfortunately, for the next 2 years, I don't think there's going to be any relief. But
are they going to last for the next 2 years? Like, the only people in Cuba that are saved is because they have family elsewhere that send them money. I saw in the article, and basically what they make a month is $9.
Yes, I saw that too. I just read that, and that's pretty shocking. That's like nothing at all.
And they lose more because they pay them in Cuban pesos, but they also have a convertible Cuban currency that whenever the Cubans go to exchange, which they have to, because some services or some needs are, you can use Cuban pesos, but for other things, you have to use the convertible Cuban peso. And so when they change that, they give them less always. Whatever they lose more, that's the side that they give them in the exchange. Like they change the conversion rate for whatever benefits the store, not the Cuban. But for the Cuban, they always lose money. They get, for example, 25 Cuban pesos, and when they exchange it to get the other one, they get, that's just to get 1 Cuban peso. Let's say do 100 Cuban pesos to get 4 Cuban pesos of the convertible ones, and they would get like 2 or 3. They get less. They always get less, and so it feels like they are just, against the wall, with a sword against the wall on every angle.
And this last story that I posted it last night, and I don't know why it didn't work, so I just reposted it. But it was about this gay cruise ship that keeps getting blocked. It's been blocked from entering Egypt after being banned from entering Turkey. And apparently it's a cruise ship that Patti LuPone is performing on. I think this is kind of funny because I think it's kind of silly for a gay cruise ship to try to go to the Middle East in the first place. Now, I do know someone that went on the first gay cruise to the Middle East, and they were not turned away or blocked from any ports of entry. They went to Egypt and Israel. Of course, Israel is okay. It was before the war. But they said that everything went great on their cruise and that everyone was okay. But I thought that this story was really kind of funny. I think it's, if you're going to I just think you have to realize when you're going to go to those countries, they're not going to respect a gay cruise. That's just not going to happen. You shouldn't be taking a gay cruise to the Middle East. It's dangerous.
But is that what happened? Because I'm reading in the article and they were headed to Venice. And, while it's still in the area, they were just passing through. So the ships, the Egyptian Navy, or whatever, if they call themselves that, the Egyptian authorities, they blocked the ship. That means that they were on the sea, which means that they may not have been going to that area at all. They just had to pass through that area to get to where they wanted. And even then, they were blocked.
Yes, it was a trip from Athens to Venice that was stopping in other iconic destinations, including Mykonos, Santorini, Istanbul, Dubrovnik, and more. So they were definitely planning on going to Turkey for sure, and they did get banned from Turkey.
I wonder why, though.
Because it's a gay cruise, and they're homophobic.
Oh my God.
I don't know about the whole Egypt. Yeah, it does say there was an Egypt stop on the cruise that was added to the itinerary after the ship was not allowed to dock in Turkey.
They were literally banned from entering their waters at all.
Right, yeah, that's crazy. Egyptian officials have not shared why the cruise ship was blocked, although the government shared a post on X which read, "The organization planned by groups known for behaviors that do not align with the structure of our society and our moral values, and which has come to the agenda in the press and broadcast organs and social media platforms to dock a cruise ship rented by these groups at Aden Kudasi Port on July 7th, 2026, and which has caused great discomfort in various segments of our societies, has been canceled." That was their official statement.
And I'm reading also that the Turkish president adopted a increasingly harsh rhetoric against the LGBTQ community over the past decade, sparking condemnation from rights groups. The authorities have banned pride marches in Istanbul since 2015, citing public safety and security concerns. That leads me down a little dark path, and I'm thinking, if those what ifs that everyone thinks, if the world goes to chaos and we all go into, apocalypse mode, do you think that the LGBTQ community would have to go in hiding?
Well, hopefully not in the United States, but I don't know about that. That is kind of worrisome, but, yeah, I think that it's scary for sure whenever we think about these countries in Africa and the Middle East where homosexuality is punishable by law, and there's definitely a lot of places that are unsafe for LGBTQ people to travel. Yeah. Jamaica is actually one of them. It's a very little known fact about Jamaica, but I will never go to Jamaica ever. Yeah, it's not safe there to be gay. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up for today. A big thank you to Jared for joining me and sharing his experiences and perspective. As always, if you enjoyed the conversation, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me on Instagram at Henry Hudson Hour or by email at henryhudsonhour@gmail.com. The music in this episode was composed by John Bartman. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on the Henry Hudson Hour. Bye, Jared.
Bye.
All right, bye. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
All right. Bye, y'all. See you next week.